Hi, my name's Mackenzie. I'm the girl behind OnlyUptown on Etsy, and today I thought I was going to give a little tutorial on 3 of the most fundamental stitches that you'll need to know if you want to begin learning crochet. This first video, we're just going to talk about the single crochet, which is the top row right here. And then this is the half double crochet. We'll go into that one in a different video. And then last but not least, the double crochet. Now all of these stitches begin the same way. We're going to just be making a little swatch today. But as you can see, the height is not the only difference between these 3 different types of crochet. If you pull them apart, so are the spaces. If you can see, there are spaces in the double crochet, which is not a problem, but for certain projects you'll want a more tighter stitch, in which case a half double crochet or a single crochet would probably be your preferred choice. And as you can see here, the spaces between the stitches when I pull them apart, and I'm not pulling very hard, I'm just stretching it out a little bit. There are little bits of spaces, but this is actually my preferred stitch of crochet between the 3, and then virtually nothing on the single crochet. Today we'll just be talking about the single crochet here. Okay, so the first things you'll need to start is a skein of yarn or ball of yarn, whichever. This is just a leftover ball of yarn I had from, I think it's Red Heart Comfort line. It's just a 4-weight yarn, and with this 4-weight yarn I will be using a 4.5mm crochet hook. If you have a 5mm, that'll work fine too, or a 4mm. You should have no issue. The sizing of your little square will just be a little bigger or smaller depending on the size of hook you have. The next thing you'll need is a darning needle, but you won't need this till the very end, and that's just going to be used so that when we're finished the full square of these stitches, we can weave these ends in and they're not just dangling there. And then lastly, of course, a pair of scissors. This is how we start. Now there's a couple different ways to do it. I'm going to show you the way I like to do it. There is no right or wrong way, but you want to make a slip knot. So with making sure you have a little tail, it doesn't matter how much, just enough so that it's comfortable for you to weave in at the end. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the yarn, wrap it around your 2 fingers until you make an X, and then on the reverse, you're going to put your other 2 fingers underneath, grab that, and then just let it pull tight. Like I said, there's a couple different ways to do that, but what you want to make sure is that the thread that you're pulling through is the one where you tighten up on it, not on the tail end. If you pull on the tail end here, you don't want to be tightening up on this first chain, because that'll just make it a little harder to start, because that first stitch you won't have to worry about loosening up as you work. So the most challenging part about crochet is probably getting comfortable holding the yarn and hook in your hand. You can hold it this way like you would a knife, or some people hold it like a pencil. I prefer it this way, so just do whatever is most comfortable for you. And what we're going to first do is we're going to chain. Now how we chain, if you can see, I have the working yarn, the yarn that we're going to be grabbing from, wrapped around my index finger, and I'm kind of holding it between my ring and pinky fingers. And that's just to hold my tension. Like I said, this is probably the most challenging part about learning to crochet, is getting comfortable holding the yarn this way and your hook, and making sure the tension is consistent. So if your tension is not consistent, it's not a problem. You can either unravel it and do it again, or if it doesn't bother you, then you'll have a perfectly good little swatch or coaster to make use of. So, how we chain, make sure that your hook is kind of faced on the inside. The hook part is pointed towards you, and we're going to wrap underneath the yarn. And this is called yarning over, so that when we slip it through that chain, it grabs onto that yarn. So we're going to do that again. Like I said, hook facing you, yarn underneath and over, and pull through. Again, pull through, pull through, and pull through. And if you notice, I'm choking up on the work or the chain that we're making as we go, just to get more stability, because I find it's a little harder to hold it farther away from the stitch you're currently working on. And you don't want to be right on the stitch that you're going to be adding, but a couple stitches behind adds more stability. So I'm just going to continue to chain until I have, let's say, 16 of these little V chains on here. So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 right now. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So, depending on the stitch you're using, for example, if you're doing a half or a single crochet, the number of chains you have in your initial chain is always going to be one more than the number of stitches that you will be working, because we need an extra chain, and the chains do not count the one on your hook right here, so that we can turn our work. So as you can see, I'm holding on to it about this far away from the hook, and now we're going to do our first single crochet. Insert into the second chain from the hook, and remember, we do not count the one on the hook as a chain. So the second one from the hook, not this one, but this one, and we're going to go right in between those two V's right there, or that V. And then we're going to, just like when we were chaining, yarn over, pull through, and then you have 2 loops on your hook. Now, to finish off this single crochet, we are going to, again, yarn over and pull through both those loops. And you've just made your first single crochet. And we're going to be doing that in every remaining chain in the row. So, insert into the next chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And now you have 2. And we're just going to keep doing that this whole row until we have an entire row of just single crochets. And it'll try to curl up on you. That's totally fine, not an issue. That'll relax as either you use the object or if you decide to block it with water or steam or whatnot. Yarn over, pull through 2. Insert yarn over, pull through 2. And then just as we're approaching the very end. There will be less for us to hold on to. And this is one of the reasons why it's important to make the slip knot so that when you pull on the tail, it doesn't tighten that first chain, because as you're running out of work to hold on to, you're gonna need to hold on to that chain. And if the tail was the strand that was tightening this chain, it would be very hard to get your hook into there. So just to make it a little easier on yourself. And in the very last chain, we place our last single crochet, and now you have done an entire row of single crochets. Now to begin the second row, what we do is we chain again, yarn over, pull through, and then we turn our work to the wrong side. And when you're working in panels, you're always going to be working right side, wrong side, so every other row will be a right and or a wrong side, depending on which side you're looking at. So now that we have our chain, we skip that chain and go into that first stitch, so that last single crochet we did in the previous row. And if you turn your work here, actually, you can see, just like the chains, there are those little V's throughout the entire row. And what we're going to be doing is when we insert our hook, we insert underneath both those loops, so underneath the V. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. Insert underneath those two stitches, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. And then just like the last row, we continue doing this for the remainder of the row. So you should have 15 single crochets. And you'll get faster at it as you work. Don't be discouraged if you feel you're going very slow. Thankfully, this is a video and you can pause and rewind where you need to. And now the very last stitch can be a little hard to identify, but if you look at it, see this right here? This is the chain that we had, that first chain from the hook when we created our first row. And then this is the very top of that first single crochet. You might have to flip it around to find it, but this is what's going to make it so that your ends are even here. They're not going every which way. And if you miss it, you can always go back. That's no big deal. So again, we're gonna go underneath those two strands, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through two. And you've just completed your first two rows of single crochet. Now I'm going to continue doing this and meet back up with you when it's all done. Okay, and now that we have reached the end, what you're gonna do, on the very last chain, you are gonna take those scissors and just cut yourself a good, comfortable length to weave in at the very end. And that is how you do single crochet. Personally, I think these look a little bit like bow ties. But as you can see, it's the same on either side, and if you want to check to make sure it's even, just fold it in half, crossways, to make sure it's square. And now you have a lovely, depending on the size you make, coaster, washcloth, or pot holder. The only thing I would caution you about is if you're making a pot holder, make sure that the fiber content is some sort of natural fiber. Cotton is probably the best, but you don't really want to be using an acrylic yarn because acrylic is plastic essentially, and you don't want to melt it if you place a boiling hot pot on top of it. You don't want to melt this. But if it's a washcloth or a coaster, acrylic yarn should be perfectly fine. You can find that at any local craft store or even your local dollar store. So we are going to weave in these ends. Grab your darning needle, and I like to give it a little twist just to make that easier to feed through. Is just weave it in. A zigzag motion is always most secure, just to ensure it doesn't pull out. And you want to go in different directions, like I said, in more of a zigzag shape, so that it won't, to prevent any unraveling. And just do that a couple times until you're comfortable it's not going to come out. I think this is pretty good because it's already tied off on that end there, because that's where we began. And just take your scissors and cut it, get rid of that little bit, and then just do the exact same thing to this side. And then just give it a good stretch on either side, just to straighten it out. Also, tossing it in the wash and laying it flat to dry will also relax these edges. In my next video, like I said, we will be going on to the half double crochet. Personally, my favorite stitch of the three, but we'll save that for next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.